Things are starting to get back to some form of normalization starting this week.
Yaron, Carni, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're calling from Israel, right?
I am.
How's everything over there?
Things are starting to get back to some form of normalization starting this week, but it's way too early to
Way too
to
early.
assess. I I myself am still at home.
Yeah, this is going to be broadcasted in just a few weeks. So hopefully by then we'll keep on the optimism and the starting to open up will be fully opened up, but we'll see. In the
I
meantime,
doubt it, but let's see.
we'll see. Okay, so Yaron, such a great pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Founder of Maverick Partners. You're on the board of some incredible organizations that we'll touch upon. Contributor at Forbes. I've been following for a long time and a big fan. And I'd love to spend these 20 minutes to sort of pick your brain and have a discussion on what it's like to open up a venture capital firm in a pretty non-traditional way like you did, while at the same time really being a core part of these organizations and companies. So maybe give me a quick rundown of what happened in your life that led to Maverick and then joining these awesome companies.
So that goes back to my schooling. I would assume specifically.
Yep.
I grew up in the States for a bunch of years. I'm Israeli born, grew up in the States, uh, and then moved back to Israel to finish high school, do the army, and all that. And then I started studying here in Israel at the IDC at the ZEL program.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the second ZEL program class.
Wow.
And
I just
yeah,
did a talk with Liat Aronson. I don't know if she was the director
she's
back
great.
then.
She wasn't. She wasn't born then when I was a student. And she's terrific. She's a force behind the program for the
Definitely.
past many years, over a decade, of course. Anyhow, so I studied there, and I was always an entrepreneur from a very young age. I can remember myself really dabbling in every kind of different field that you could imagine. I was always attracted to setting up companies and setting up businesses and failing. I failed a lot with a lot of different ideas. And a bit after the my first degree, my bachelor degree, I flew back to New York and I worked there with my brother. He had a promotional staffing agency, like an HR platform at the time for independent contractors that he had founded called GC Marketing. And I went back and helped him with the company. And about a year later, we found a buyer who we sold the majority holdings to the company to. And I decided to come back home to Israel.
Yeah.
And I came back and I was looking for what to do. And then um, I started my master's degree in IP law. And I decided that I'm very attracted to the whole field of technologies and
Was that
patents
really your
and
first interception with technology when you did your master's in IP? Is that when you really got into
no,
it?
I think during the Zell program I was most exposed to it, and it
Okay.
actually goes back. The story connects, and you're even connected to this story indirectly, you yourself. And then I decided I teamed up with a friend from New York who is a very successful business person who I met actually also through my studies. And he had sold his company in the States, and he said, you know what, let's start. I keep hearing about Israeli innovation. Let's start an angel group together in which we will invest in very early stage Israeli companies. So it was basically, everyone has that moment in their life
Yep.
that completely changes their life. That was my moment at the
Wow.
time. And to this day, it's probably my moment. And I remember that call, and I said, all right, great. And I started looking for startups to invest in. And I was looking for things for quite a long time, and I couldn't find anything that I really liked. And so I thought at the time that, basically I'm screwed in a way where this is just too difficult to do. And then out of nowhere, I was very, very lucky to have re-met my classmate from the Zell program, Oded Pontash. He had set up a company with four other founders that was called Lab Pixies.
Yep.
Lab Pixies did widgets for iGoogle. iGoogle is the equivalent of, say, the App Store nowadays, but this was in prehistoric
Oh, that's
times,
such
which
a long
means
time ago.
uh,
I remember it from my
decade ago.
childhood.
Exactly. And that company, I remember it launched, and the very first day it made $5. And I thought, wow, this is an amazing company because there's so much potential. And I ended up convincing my partner to invest in it. He thought it was, he didn't really connect to it as much. And we put $1 million in the company. I'd put $100,000 in the company, which was all I had from any, it was all the money I had saved up. And it was a long journey, and yada yada yada. I also became the head of biz dev at the company, so I was both an investor and
Interesting.
relatively actively involved.
Yep.
He also invested in six companies in total. And that company, Lab Pixies, ended up being the first Israeli company to be sold to Google.
Wow.
Met the Google guy, and he was based in the States at the time, and we started talking, and that led to a relationship. It was really amazing. And then the deal was done very quickly, and it was really a true pleasure to work with Google in this process. And that at the time made me quite known in the market, and I got a lot of deal flow all of a sudden.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, we'd invested in 6 companies.
Yeah.
2 of them folded, and 4 of them we were able to sell.
Wow.
So that was considered a very lucky track record.
Yeah, of course.
But I loved it. I loved being able to find entrepreneurs at a very early stage. I loved being able to help them, with everything and anything you could imagine. Really being one of them as a founder, in a way. So some of the companies, we're still in touch, of course, to this very day. But some of them, we had all the growing pains that they had suffered. We'd gone through with them.
Sure. How tight was your relationship with your founders in your first investments? Because it's all over the spectrum. Some investors like to be very hands on. Some of them are very talk to me every quarter. What was your
extremely? Role? I mean, daily, almost daily. Or,
oh wow.
At least several times a week. Nowadays, by the way, we're still very actively involved as a fund. Also, almost the same level of intensity, because we believe that that's what we could provide apart from money. It's the added value component. But what I learned in that angel group, which was called the Tel Aviv Angel Group, is the importance of working with your investors and getting as much added value from them as possible, because everybody has the ability to be helpful to the companies. They just need to be prone to be helpful.
Totally.
That's the point.
Totally.
And you need to know how to motivate them and how to get their attention. And all these people, even though likely this won't change their lifestyles if the company does incredibly well, they still want to be helpful, and they find the companies interesting both in an economic perspective, but also challenging in other forms, and out of interest, they like to be helpful to the companies because they find what they're doing interesting.
Right. So what is that? What is Maverick actually? What does that name stand for?
So Maverick actually sort of is the next generation, the next step of the Tel Aviv Angel Group that I had founded. And the word Maverick was chosen because of the dual meaning. You all know what a maverick means in English, but in Hebrew, Maverick means mavrik, to spark, to shine, to be a genius idea. And that's the origin of this name. So we're Maverick Ventures Israel. That's the name of the fund. We have 2 funds. Our first fund was just a bit over $40 million. The second fund was over $75 million.
Wow.
And now we are in the process of fundraising for our third fund.
Wonderful. So how many companies have you invested in so far?
We've invested in 35 companies, I believe. Last year was very, very active. I think we were one of the most active funds, if not the in Israel, but we don't tend to promote any of the deals that we do. We're
Okay.
not against it if other firms do, but we are, or the company does, but we ourselves relatively shy away from proactive public relations at this time. Until, God willing, we succeed in one of the companies, something interesting happens with one of the companies, then we're very happy. But our approach is to try to be relatively as modest as we can at this stage.
So give me maybe, two or three very quick intuitions that you're looking for as you're approaching due diligence. By the way, I'm assuming this is more seed stage, right? For these
No, we don't. We do early growth.
early
So our
growth.
check size is usually up to $5 million.
Oh
Three
wow,
to
okay.
$2 to $5 million is our. So I no longer do the stuff I did with the angel group. We try to go. We only look for companies that already have initial traction and revenues, and we try to help them scale up as much as we can. We have over 100 investors, 100 LPs. So what I had before, and the 4 to 6 investors in the angel group. So
Yep.
this is the same thing, much bigger. And all these people, as I said, some of them are extremely helpful. You probably know several of them, and they are people that come from all fields, from academia,
Yep.
from different businesses. We have business women and men from really all walks of life that you could imagine.
So what are some of the challenges of running a fund with over 100 LPs? Because on one hand, you want to really utilize their strong
Good question.
backgrounds and their expertise, whether it's in due diligence or in deal sourcing. But at the same time, you sort of have to please 100 different people. And you know the saying, you put two Jews
100% right.
two Jews in a room, you get six opinions. So I can't imagine what
They're
happens.
not Jews, by the way. They're not only Jewish people, thank God. We have people from all walks of life and all ethnicities and all backgrounds. And happily, the people who invest in Maverick don't invest in Maverick because of the, say, ethnical aspect of it being,
Yep.
the Jewish homeland and so on. They just think it's a place that they could get a high return, and
And then
that's what makes me happy.
how do you balance this expectation that you'll please everybody while at the same time
Never please anybody.
never.
You never please anybody, but you need to, first of all, you need to do a few things. First and foremost, and I say this to every person who wants to become an LP in the company, is I bluntly tell them there's a very good chance you'll lose all your money investing in a venture fund and in our venture fund
Makes sense.
as well. Secondly, we don't try to please them. What we do try to do is to do everything possible to reach the best outcome we can, and to be a go-between between their abilities and their connections and what the companies seek. So each one of these investors in our mindset has the ability to be helpful to each one of the companies, or to many of the companies. People who have gone through, like, imagine you in 10 years from now, you will have your alumni association, you'll have all the friends that you've had in your past jobs and education and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd like to be helpful to the companies, but you'd
course.
also like us to be as respectful to your time as possible. So we
Sure.
need to make sure that we know exactly what each person could bring to the table on one hand, and on the other hand, not to assume that you do not have connections to a juice manufacturer in Australia, because maybe you randomly do. And so we try to sort of, play on that thin line and be still very respectful to the LP's time. And the way we do this is we send a quarterly report, and then we have a to-do page at the very beginning with 3 points that each company would like assistance with. So if it's,
Interesting.
say, staffing a position like a they're looking for a CFO to open an office in the East
Okay.
Coast, or they want a connection to this or that conglomerate, or if anybody has experience in a specific tax question that they may have, and you will just notice
Right.
that oftentimes people have something to add. And that's what differentiates us. We act
Interesting.
with the same passion that we had as an angel group. I want to believe we have the same thing now. And when it's people's private money, it's different than when you're
Of course.
when you have raised money from institutionals and the likes. And again, of course, not all the LPs are very active, but many of them surprise you.
Of course, yeah. No, I have to say that I'm with Oded now at J Ventures, and we
Great guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
over 100 LPs, and it's just so humbling to see that people are putting their time, their effort, and it's amazing how much of it they put in and how willingly they want to help. And when it's not for a salary or because they have to, but because they want to, they raise their hand and say, yeah, I want
Yeah.
to be a part of this company and this due diligence or help this portfolio. You see so much value that they bring. And you're right that out of over 100 potential LPs, you sometimes get these gems that are really random with a connection to a juice manufacturer in Australia. Yaron, I have to ask about Ichud Vatzala, United Vatzala Group, one of the most inspiring organizations and entrepreneurship uh, elements of Israel. Talk to me a little bit about it and what's your role over there.
I will. Just before I get into that, I want to go back one step and say that our LPs are from all over the place. And thank God, really, one of the best things to have happened to remember, we said there's that moment when I got that phone call from my first partner
Yep.
and in the Angel Group. And then the second moment that I had was when I met Michelle Abadi, who's my partner and has been my partner since inception of the fund of Maverick. He is originally from Brazil. He lives in Israel, though, now for over 16 years. And his network spans all of Latin America, which is a humongous area
Wow.
that people tend to forget,
Yep.
when it comes to this field. And we have investors from Europe and from Australia and
Incredible.
from other parts of the world. So very heterogeneous in terms of the backgrounds of the LPs.
Amazing.
And of course, I have really, and him and I, Michelle and I, really complement each other, and we work very well together. That's something very important. If I could give one tiny advice to all the
Yes.
aspiring new people watching, if there's anyone watching that wants to set up a company of any kind, is to always make sure to do what is considered counterintuitive, which is to not surround yourself by people that have the same backgrounds as you,
Yep.
that you know from school. His
Sure.
background, he's an engineer by trade, he's a banker. He just, we're very different, and we are very, very close and really complement ourselves.
Wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful.
About this, so going back to the fact that we have only private investors, one of the second reason we only have private investors, the first, of course, is their potential added value, which has proven itself time and time again, is the fact that we decided from the get-go to donate 2% of our fund's carry of the success of the fund to United Hatzalah, which you mentioned. United Hatzalah, in my opinion, is the most amazing organization that I've come across. And I think that it embodies two things that are important to me and to everyone, which is, again, entrepreneurship, because what they do is very innovative, what they've decided to go against the flow.
Yeah.
And secondly, is the very basic essence of saving lives.
Take
So
action into their
here
own
too.
hands.
What's that?
Taking action into their own hands, literally bypassing
Not
whatever.
waiting for anyone else.
I
And
love
what
it.
they do, they started as a guerrilla operation in a way. And to them too, I was introduced by that same partner, Mark Urson, from the very beginning. Um, and what they do is they formed an organization which is similar to Uber, if you think about it,
Yep.
which is an organization that has over 6,000 volunteers spread out
Wow.
throughout all of Israel. And these are people that go around their day-to-day jobs or whatever they're doing, and they are located. They all have medical training and equipment, and they
First
go about
responders,
their
first to get to the
first
scene,
responders.
saving
They
lives.
stabilize whoever is injured, car accidents, births, heart attacks, stabbings, terror attacks, God willing, God forbid,
Love
and
it.
all these other things. And they get to 1,800 calls a day. That's about,
1,800 calls a day?
yeah, yep. And it's all for free. They'll never charge anything from anyone ever. They
Ah,
also have a few ambulances to help transport people who just can't pay, are not able or not willing to pay for transport to a hospital.
unbelievable.
And all these, and they just do good. They have people who help with psychiatric help and psychological help, and they help Holocaust survivors. They help the needy. They are basically a bunch of angels that it's the most amazing organization I've done. And by the way, similar to a startup, you want to make sure that the money that goes into them is spent in a lean manner,
Of course.
and that's something that you could see there. Money there goes, the vast majority of it to buying medical supplies.
So you're not
That's
just
it.
a fan. You're on the board of United
Yeah, I'm
Hatzalah.
on the board for the past over a decade.
Incredible.
And there are many wonderful people, and um, I've decided in my start of philanthropic life to only focus on one thing and to do it as well as you can. And every single
Wonderful.
person that I meet, I introduce and praise and talk about this organization, because this organization is the essence of being a light unto the nations, which is what the Jewish people are called to be.
Ah,
And this
Yaron, I
is
love
the
it.
organization that we're trying to set up all over the world. This isn't a Jewish thing. Here
Yep.
we have many Muslims and many Christians,
Incredible.
many women, many male Haredi, which is the ultra orthodox, totally secular people, and we're doing the same thing all over the world. Where we want people to copy this. We want this. I myself was in Brazil when they opened it, Lithuania, New Jersey, Jersey City, and other parts of the world. And this is exactly what we want. We want Israeli. This is our exit of a startup company. We want this
To go global.
to go global,
I
to
love
save
it.
millions of lives.
I love it. Yaron, I can't believe we're already over 20 minutes. It went by way too fast. I have to put you on the spot once and ask you for three words that you would best describe yourself, or that others would describe you, whether it's Michelle or Eli Be'er from United Hatzalah. What are three words that would really embrace Yaron Carni?
Annoying,
Good.
funny, um, and a good friend.
I love it.
To them, to these two people.
I love it. Yaron, thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for the
Thank
inspiration.
you so much. Thank you.